So on the first episode of the community podcast from Simon and Jacob, I was talking to Simon and Jacob, and one of the things we touched on was my interest in, how other people work, what their workflow is, even down to what screen and keyboard. I joked about what screen and keyboard, other people use, and there was a thing a while ago about sharing your desktop and sharing your sort of configuration for Enlightenment or OpenStep or whatever the window manager you're running on Linux and stuff. Is a whole sort of genre of things going on there. But anyway, I mean, in all seriousness, I do like to see how other people work. So I thought, well, why not show people a little bit about how I work. In particular, there was an itch I wanted to scratch. I'll explain that shortly. And I thought, well, just come back from my run this morning. I've got my coffee. Not much left actually. And I thought I'd do a pretty much unscripted video showing you what I did, what the problem was, what the itch was, what I wanted to do to scratch it, and how I went about it. Nothing earth-shattering, but it may be interesting. So, as you can see on the screen, I've got the workflow monitor here. I've talked about that before in my Discovering SAP Cloud Platform Workflow blog post series. I've got one particular post on there called The Monitor. It's a great example of a nicely designed and implemented UI5 Fiori app. And this is what it looks like if we're looking here at a workflow instance of this workflow definition called demo request. And one of the things that I've been doing recently in developing quite a complex workflow with lots of different steps is, the workflow runs and I sort of refresh it, and then, but what I want to see straight after the refresh is where the workflow has got to. So I've got to go down to the execution log down here, for example. So if I refresh it again, I'm back at the top, and I've got to scroll down to the execution log either by clicking this little tab thing here, or of course, just scrolling up and down with my mouse. Now, you might think that's a little bit lazy to complain about that, but this is a little bit of an itch, and I thought, well, really, for me, I mean, this may not work for everyone, but for me, I would like the execution log, which is the stuff that starts with this title here, straight after the workflow information. So I could see it every time I refreshed, it would be sort of here on screen. And that's what I did. I'll just show you, here's an example of what I did, and we'll work up to this. So if I run this, press this little bookmarklet, that's exactly what happens. So I've now got the execution log second in the list of tabs here. So when I press refresh, it's there, and I can see the latest thing that's happening here. So there we go. Let me refresh this, because of course what I did there is ephemeral, as in it doesn't hang around. It reminds me a little bit of Grease Monkey, which was a really nice sort of infrastructure for writing code to modify websites and apps that you didn't have control over, and so on. So you could sort of hack the website to fix things, or to add things, to augment things to your to scratch whatever itch you had. So it sort of reminds me a little bit of this. The reason why this is possible is because of the wonderful sort of introspective nature of UI5 and the way that you can actually manipulate UI5 with JavaScript. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do. I hope it doesn't take too long, and I hope I don't ramble too much, but I'm rambling now actually. So yeah, how did I go about it? This is unscripted. I did this a few days ago, so we're almost like starting from scratch because my memory is terrible. The first thing I thought was, okay, well, this thing here, it looks a little bit like an icon tab bar without the icons, but actually the way that this thing behaves, if I click on workflow context, for example, it scrolls down nicely, and it reminds me of sort of the batch of newer elements, the newer controls in UI5 relating to smart controls and Fiori elements. But anyway, let's have a quick look. Of course, the first thing I always like to do is open the developer tools. In fact, if I've not got the developer tools open, I feel a little bit sort of uncomfortable because I don't know what's going on. And you can use this inspect. I use this inspect. Okay, what's this thing here? Oh gosh, yes, there we go. The really weird thing is that you can see in that sort of orange bit there that this has quite a long ID. The first part of the ID, of course, is relating to the general view. But there, I can already see something in sort of. I'm not going to move my mouse because I think that disappears. There we go. Yeah, we can already see that. It's object page layout in sort of camel case. That gives me a clue that that's possibly what this whole thing is, but we'll dig into that. So I'm going to click that and I can see exactly the HTML element that is what's been highlighted here. I can move up and so on. I'm going to move up with my arrow keys and I can see I'm moving between these different tabs, and these tabs it's to do with the anchor bar. There we go. These are anchor bar. These are anchors, which is quite interesting. So definitely not icon tab filters. And then move up slightly for the whole bar, and then ooh, it's gone away again. Okay, go further and further up, and it's getting a little bit bigger. Oh, there we go. That's interesting. That looks to me like a whole page of stuff, as in a whole lump of stuff. What is that? Now we can see. I use this this feature of the Chrome Developer Tools, the $0. In fact, I'll make this a little bit bigger. There we go. $0. If I hover there, use $0 in the console to refer to this element. So another thing I do is there's a console drawer at the I'm pointing with my fingers. There's a console drawer there at the bottom. Quite often I don't like to use the mouse, so if you press escape and escape again, the console drawer goes away and comes back again, but when it comes back, your cursor key is in the console drawer, so you don't have to, your focus is in there. So I'm going to hit Control L to clear the screen. So I'm already able to sort of, grab the reference to that. Okay, so what is this? Get core by ID. Now this is probably my most used utility function. Just, get me the thing with this ID. Now the ID is $0.id. In fact, if I say $0.id, that's just saying give me the ID attribute, the value of the ID attribute of that particular element there. So I'm going to say SAP UI get core by ID. There we go. So we've grabbed hold of now an instance of something. What is that something? If I say get metadata, my favorite function of all time. Oh yes, okay, it's an object page layout from a UXAP library. Okay, so I'm going to have a quick look at the what am I doing? UI5 at the API reference for the object page layout. There we go. And that should tell us, when did it appear? Oh, 126, it's actually older than I thought. Anyway, where have I been? Where has it been all my life? So we can see it's got an anchor bar. That's that thing up here. Okay, that looks like it could be the thing we want to do, but I don't know what these things are here. So let's have a quick look. It's going to be an aggregation, isn't it? So it's aggregation section, sections, header title, header content, and footer. Now it's definitely not the header title or the footer because those are at the 0 to 1 aggregation. So you can either have none or one of those things. But of course we've got 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be a multiple aggregation. So it's either sections or header content. I'm going to get sections. So let's have a quick look. In fact, why don't we? I could use, of course, the wonderful inspector tool. Let's just, there we go, use the claw, Control-Alt-Shift-S to bring up the inspector tool. What's going on here? Come on. There we go. And look at the control tree. Now, the thing is that these sorts of controls are quite complex. And you can see there's a ton of stuff there. I could look for the object page layout, but in fact, object page layout, there's 15 instances of that string in there. And look, oh, that's the one there, but I didn't find it before. So what I would prefer to do, in fact, is have a look at the view definition itself of this app. So Back again, somebody came to the door. Postman. What was I? Oh yes, so have a look at the view definition itself. Now, if we go into the network panel, and I'm hoping it's going to be an XML view. In fact, I remember it was an XML view because it's developed by people like you and me, doing it, being done properly. But there isn't one there. Just refresh just to make sure that it wasn't loaded before I started the developer tools, and therefore it wouldn't be in the network panel. Okay, there's no view.xml, and that's because, of course, the very fact that we have a component preload for the, if you look at the hover thing there, for the BPM workflow monitor set of resources. So of course it's been built with compression and preload, so that all the views are actually inside there. I could use the inspector tool to toggle on debugging, but actually the easiest way for me is that UI debug equals true, and just add that as a parameter and reload. Now, of course, that's going to take a little bit longer because, of course, I'm asking for all the resources to be loaded one by one, which is fine for debugging because I say that's what you want to have. And hopefully we should see the views. Well, let's look for BPM workflow. Let's just get that out a minute. Look for the resources relating to the workflow monitor, which is the BPM workflow monitor name. Gosh, there are a lot of resources being requested. Come on. It'd be good if this screen recording software had a nice key combination to pause and resume. It doesn't seem to have, actually. Pause here and do it there, but I'd like to be able to do it with a key command. I'm sure it used to do. Anyway, I'm going to pause it anyway and come back when it's all loaded. Okay, 600 odd requests later. Everything's loaded, which is cool. BPM workflow monitor. There we go. We've got all sorts of resources relating to that. One of the really nice things I found in the workflow monitor, by the way, was the fact that they've got this nice little curry module. Anyway, that's a story for another time. So let's have a look at BPM workflow. Some things is a regular expression view. There we go. So regular expressions you can express in this filter thing here, as long as you surround them by the normal way of wrapping a regular expression, which is the forward slashes. BPM workflow, then at least one or more characters, and then the word view, and then we can have a literal maybe, I don't know, .xml, there we go, yeah, .xml, literal .xml, and we've got the app view, instance master, which is this one, I'm guessing, and instances detail, which is this one, I'm guessing. Let's have a look at this. In fact, the best way to look, rather than look here, I just double click it and it opens in a new tab. So here is the actual source of the view definition for this thing. Of course, I've made that a little bit too big now. There we go. Let's make that smaller again. There we go. We can see here, yeah, it has an object page layout in the UXAP namespace, and within that we've got a header title and we've got a header content, and then these are the aggregations that we saw before, I think. And then here's another aggregation, UXAP sections, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, which relate, I think, yeah. Instance detail, information header, errors, context, and log. Info, errors, context, and log. And that is hopefully, yeah, info, errors, context, and log. Execution log. There we go. So those are the 4 things. So they are object page sections. So now if we look at well, actually we don't need to look at the API reference, because with every aggregation in UI5 you get sort of standard functions on the object. So we can say, for example, let's switch to the console, and we can say, well, in fact we need it to grab this again, don't we? We've reloaded it, so let's grab this again. Let's go up here, Is that it there? ID, object page, oh, a bit further up I think. Object page layout, there we go, there's the thing again. In fact, what I'll do, because I'm going to use this thing again, double click, grab that with copy, hit the toggle to click draw. So now, object page layout, OPL for example, you might get core by ID, and then a bit bigger as well. There we go, a bit bigger. In fact, let me do, I also have here, workflow-wise, in my settings, I always put the, where is it these days? Enable control 1 to 9, or command 1 to 9 on a Mac, to switch between panels. So I'm going to switch to the console panel, 1, 2, so it's command 2 for me, bang, there, get a nice fresh console, and control L clears it. So OPL equal, did I do that already? What did I do? No, there we go, yes, up arrow is the command history, there we go. So OPL.get, now, we know these are from the API, these are sections, so we can say get sections. That's a standard thing that you should expect to see. And there we go, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, hopefully are these things here. So in a section, let's get the first one, have a look at the first one, get metadata, what is that? It's an object page section, and the object page section, as we saw, is exactly the type here for the sections. And it's got a, well, it probably inherits from something else, object page sections base, in fact. It's got a title, so yeah, there we go, there's a title. So we know it's got a title. So we can say get title, workflow information, which is exactly this one. So we can just double check, triple check, OPL, get sections, dot map, and then we'll have a little function to say x dot get title. There we go, workflow information, error messages, workflow context, and execution log, etc. Now, the other thing that you get with any sort of multiple aggregation is remove and add. So you can remove a section and you can add a section. So we can say, in fact, before I forget, I'll remove that later. OPL dot, well, let's say the execution log section is OPL get section and the last one, which is 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, el dot get title, that's execution log. Now we can remove it, OPL dot remove section 3, that's gone. Then we can insert it, because we've still got it in EL here, OPL dot add, or is it insert section? Insert section, there we go, yeah, the insert section, you stick the section first, what you want to insert and where you want to insert it. So position 1, so 0, 1, we'll stick it here. There we go, so the execution log is now there and we can see it. We can do that in a nicer way. What I'll do is, in fact, now we know that that's what it is, we can get rid of this SAP UI debug true and reload. There we go, that's nicely fast. And what we can say is, well, where's the command history? There we go, OPL equals that. Now there's a little bit of a nuance that I discovered later on, but we'll talk about that shortly in terms of the first part of the ID. But anyway, let's do that. And we can say OPL.insert section, OPL.remove section 3, insert it in 1. Because the really nice thing about these generic functions is that when you do a remove section, where are we, object page section, go back to the actual object page layout, remove section is that it returns the removed section. Nice. Good thinking, UI5 team. So we can simply do this. Now we're back to normal, obviously, workflow information, error messages, workflow context, and execution log. If I do this, hopefully, there we go, switches them around. Well, it takes it out of there and puts it into there. So that really is the little dance that we want to do. Now, the ID, in fact, why don't we capture that? What I'll do is I'll create a new bookmark just by dragging that one in. It's not really this bookmark that we want. There we go, but we can edit that now. And then let's just have this as fix, okay? And the way that you do bookmarklets, you can have a little bit of JavaScript. So when you click the bookmarklet, or bookmark, the JavaScript is executed. You have to wrap it in, or you have to introduce it by JavaScript : and do the normal sort of, you know, the namespace wrapping approach, which is in a bracket function, and then you do that, and you close that again, and then you execute it. Okay, so we could say, for example, alert hello world, like that, and oh, what am I doing there? Sorry, it's in the wrong place. There. Okay. If I do that, if I click that now, get hello world. Perfect. Okay, so but what we want to do is pour this stuff into there. So if I grab this, click it, want to edit it. There. And then after that, I want to do this. Save that, grab that, edit, and add that to the end. There we go. So save that. Now note, this is application PPM workflow monitor, display definitions, which is from there. So there's two modes that this monitor works in. I'll just want to point that out now. So now if we refresh, and well, don't have to refresh actually. Oh no, yeah, I do have to refresh because we've already fixed it there. So let me refresh to get it back to normal. Error message is there, execution log is there. Now if I hit this, there we go, wonderful. It works, so it's now exactly in the right place. So I can hit refresh and hit refresh and refresh, and I can see exactly the latest item in the execution log if it were to be still in process. So that's exactly what I want, a little bit like a Grease Monkey script. There was one thing, yes, exactly. So I did notice that I came to this particular workflow instance display by going to the display definitions mode, but there's also a display instances mode which I wanted to add, which is the reason why I've got this here. If I run this and say, there we go, if I copy that and stick it here, for example, so we can see it. We've got the display instances as well as display definitions. So get core by ID, try the display instances. If you can't find that, then just go for the display definitions. So you've got two different IDs depending on the mode of the workflow monitor instance display that you're using. So there we go, very quick, well hopefully not too, how long is it? 23 minutes. A little bit of a ramble on some of my workflow, some of my approach for doing these sorts of things. So there we go, hope you enjoyed that, and I'd love to see what you do. Thanks for watching.